Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As a matter of courtesy, please silence all phones throughout the duration of the Schreiner University Centennial celebration. To begin tonight's festivities, we look to the sky. Very soon, you'll see members of the Schreiner University Aviation program fly over our campus. Decades ago, our Schreiner Institute students would take to the sky at Kerrville Field, and now we have a program of our own. These students serve as our eyes in the sky, overlooking our beautiful campus. And tonight, they send their blessing down upon us all in celebration of our ceremony. Go Mountaineers! And now, please bring your attention to the left side of the field where the firing of the Schreiner University cannon will occur by Schreiner Institute cadet Hope Kindred, kicking off our celebration.
Good evening, and welcome to Schreiner University Centennial Celebration. My name is Dr. Matt Goodwin, and I am the Dean of First Year Experience here at Schreiner University. And it gives me great pleasure to stand here before all of you as co-chair for the Centennial Committee and welcome you tonight. This day marks 100 years that Schreiner University has stood proudly within the Texas Hill Country, providing the opportunity for educational and individual growth for students. The Centennial celebrates the grit and the resilience of the university's past, as well as the university's new beginning into the next 100 years. Schreiner University has a rich history that is built upon a dream that would construct a place for the youth of Texas to have an opportunity for educational growth. A place that would continue to build upon this dream through learning and character development, occurring through shared experiences of knowledge and life lessons. We continue to live into the stated objective of the original Foursquare motto shared in the first bulletin of Schreiner Institute in 1923, to give a correct and worthwhile foundation for life. Through the last 100 years, we have navigated the continued worthwhile foundation for life, focusing our efforts to prepare students to be able to work meaningfully through purposeful lives in a changing global society. Faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community all share in the history of the university. It is in our daily interactions with the people connected to the university that continue to write the history of Schreiner. And as we have walked through the front gate, we share this history. We share the message carved in stone at the gate: enter with hope and leave with achievement. A message that is carried by all of us. The campus connects us. The shared experience cultivated by the very existence of the university. We are fortunate to be able to share past experiences just by being here and interacting as a community in the same place that 100 years ago others were sharing in their experience and connection with the university. Growing from the request of Captain Schreiner to the Presbyterian Church asking to help him create facilities for high-grade instruction in military training for boys and young men, as preparation for college and university work to the four-year university it is today. Schreiner University has connected us through these 100 years. The Centennial celebration is an opportunity to look back and celebrate together how far we have come and how far we will go. To remember the past and honor those who've paved the way for the university to grow, while also acknowledging the responsibility of the future 100 years that falls upon our shoulders of all of us and those who will come after as we continue to build into the future. And tonight, we share Schreiner's story with you, where we began, how we have changed, and where we hope to go. So let's begin this evening with the dedication of Schreiner Institute. I ask that you pay particular attention to the rifle drill and snare drum exhibition that will be performed by Schreiner Institute cadet Tyler Flores Brown. And at the same time, we will hear words from J.E. Grinstead, narrated by Joe Herring, who was a newspaperman and who described what was happening here. We will hear from words from Schreiner's Big Jim Delaney, narrated by instructor of theater Jeff Cunningham, and what he wrote as he led Schreiner Institute as its first president.
"100 years ago on this very plot of land, a new enterprise was born, a school for boys to be named Schreiner Institute after its benefactor, Charles Schreiner. It would turn out to be a legacy project for Schreiner, and we celebrate its 100th anniversary this very evening. Based on the work of local historian Joe Herring Jr. and reports from the September 20th, 1923 edition of the Kerrville Mountain Sun, we have a sense of what the kickoff celebration was like 100 years ago. Newspaperman J.E. Grinstead was there at the start, and he remembered that
a year ago, this spot was an open field. A crop of grain had been harvested from it, and I used to take walks out this way and think it was a dreary place. And now, look at the beauty of it. Almost like the story of Aladdin and his wonderful lamp. When you think about how it came about, quite as wonderful. From the rough surface of the field, within a few months have sprung these magnificent buildings. True, there were many artists and artisans at labor, but in effect, every brick, stone, tile, and shingle was placed by a single man, a man who devoted his life to service. He was half a century accumulating the materials for this great institution, and it was he, in effect, who, having the materials at hand, raised on this eminence a wonderful monument to service. From this gift of Charles Schreiner, there is a wonderful lesson for you, the lesson of service to God, to your country, and to your fellow men and women. The building of the real edifice, the most beautiful thing of all, is just begun. You men of the first year of Schreiner Institute are the foundation and cornerstone of that more beautiful building that shall grow and grow throughout the generations to come. A building of men and women whom, wherever they may be found, shall look back with pride and pleasure to the days they spent in this institution. You have opened the book in which is written the history of Schreiner Institute. The pages are blank and white. Write upon them with the pen of inspiration, drawn from earnestness of purpose. Emulate throughout your labors here that splendid example of the unselfish service shown by the founder of your school.
Schreiner's first president, Big Jim Delaney, also provided comments on that dedication day, and he too remarked on the man who made it all possible. Presenting an oil portrait of Charles Schreiner to the school, he noted,
"It is far more to us than the reminder of a man who gives generously of his wealth, that the youth of Texas may have the opportunities of education. It should be a constant inspiration to high endeavor to every man who passes through these halls." It is easy to envy Charles Schreiner the opportunity and luck and complain of our own disadvantages. But the luck of Charles Schreiner was to begin with nothing but what he had in his own spirit, except a noble wife and 2 small children. His opportunity was to wrest a living for them from the untamed wilderness with his bare hands, or starve. The opportunities for you today are 100-fold larger, and the same qualities which have brought success to him will bring abundant fulfillment to any worthy ambition that burns in your heart. I wish that we might inscribe under this portrait just these words: integrity, industry, economy. For it is to these and not to easy fortune that Charles Schreiner's success is due.
As the dedication ceremony closed 100 years ago, the school's faculty called the students together and led 15 cheers for Captain Schreiner and the school he founded.
Thank you to our Schreiner Institute and Cadet Flores Brown for that fantastic rifle exhibition. Good evening to you all. My name is Micah Rossi, and like Dr. Goodwin, I am also a co-chair of the Centennial Committee and am delighted to have you here this evening. I graduated from Schreiner University 1 year after Dr. Goodwin did in 2003 with my bachelor's degree and have served the university in a variety of ways since that time. As a residence hall director, director of campus recreation, as an adjunct instructor of psychology, and now as the director of LSS, our Learning Support Services program. Schreiner holds a very special place in my heart, and that is why it's easy for me to commit to being a part of this year's long Centennial celebration. And the celebration did not begin today, but rather a year ago with the 100th academic convocation last year, Founders Day celebrations, recall, the graduation of our Centennial class this past May, and really, those are just a few of the very many things that have occurred across the course of this year. Our committee has worked diligently to coordinate the branding of the university with new logos and to also centenify our events. And we have been very successful. At this time, I ask those members of our Centennial Celebration Committee to please rise. Thank you. Thank you for your commitment to Schreiner and for making all of our Centennial events and programs a success, including tonight. Dr. Goodwin and I have enjoyed our collaborative work, and we're very proud of what we all have accomplished together. Thank you. Yeah, there you go. We are also gathered here this evening with some legacy families that I would like to recognize and thank. Earlier this evening, a Centennial banquet was held in the Schreiner University Event Center, where the administration honored these families that built the Schreiner University legacy. There were two particular families that were showcased, and this evening, I would once more like for them to be recognized. Will the descendants of the Schreiner family please rise? To the Schreiner family, thank you. We are ever so grateful and thankful to your family. Without Captain Schreiner's generosity and vision, we would not be here today. And over the years, so many of you have stayed connected to the university in a variety of roles in support of its mission. Thank you, Schreiner family. Our second family that is due its recognition is the Junkin family. Will the Junkin family please rise? Dr. Sam Junkin grew up on this campus, attended Schreiner Institute as a student, wrote the first alma mater, and returned to campus to serve as its third president in 1971. Remarkably, he served Schreiner Institute, Schreiner College, and Schreiner University as its president. In addition, his parents were both influential in the daily operations of this institution, as his father served as the registrar for many years. We thank the Junkin family for their multi-generational support and commitment to Schreiner's ongoing success. Thank you, Junkin family. This evening, we have for you a 3-part video series. These videos help illustrate the history of Schreiner. And so, we begin with the founding and success of Schreiner Institute, narrated by Dr. Sam Junkin. Please draw your attention to the screen.
This Captain Schreiner, we called him, or what he was called. And he set aside $250,000 and 140 acres of land. So it was put in trust until after the end of the First World War. Dr. James J. Delaney set aside some money because the old captain had said you can use half of it to get started. The other half, in effect, must be set aside for what we would now call endowment. So he had $150,000 or $125,000 to get started. What is now Weir Building and Dickey Hall and what was then the President's Home over here were built. The Board of Trustees, finally they decided that they needed to appoint a president, and Dr. James J. Delaney, who was then on the staff of Austin College in Sherman, Texas, was appointed as the president. The first students were enrolled in September of 1923, all male. There were about 90 students that first year. The model for the educational program was basically a military model. There was military training. Daily uniforms were worn. Every student had to work in some way. You could work in the dairy. It had its own dairy. You could milk the cows morning and evening. You could feed the pigs because it raised its own meat for the dining room. You could work in the garden. It had its own vegetable garden. On and on. Stories about how clawing one step ahead of another, it clawed itself through the Depression. To me, the only word I can figure is miracle. My father, who was the registrar, 1 week before school starts, he opens his book and there are 7 students enrolled. He was telling me this story. I happened to ask him, "What did you do?" And he said, "I went to the restroom and threw up." And then Hoon Hall was added, and then slowly A.C. Schreiner Hall was added, and then the barracks. There was 4 sets of barracks. I wonder why they called them North, South, East, and West barracks, but all wooden buildings. And if you get former students of that era together today, and there are not many of us left, but if you get them together, they will tell you all kinds of interesting stories about life in the various barracks. The question was, in this day and time, how many of those single-sex institutions are needed? And if you can think back, probably you would come to the conclusion that not many even today remain. But even in that day, there were not many that remained. In 1949, then, Dr. Delaney retired. And he had been at it for 24, 25 years, and he was due his retirement at that point. It was soon thereafter that Dr. Eddington was appointed. Dr. Eddington was an amazing person. I wish everyone could have known him. He was an educator, a churchman, an absolutely amazing storyteller. It was actually his first year here was my last year as a student, and my class, the class of 51, college sophomores, we know that we taught him how to be president of the college. He didn't deny that, but he had fun talking about it. I wonder what would happen if Andy Eddington could walk on the campus today. Somehow, maybe from the battlements of heaven, Big Jim and Andy and my parents and all of those giants who created it in a plowed field and who made it through the Depression and through the wars and so forth and so forth. I trust that they smiled to themselves and said, hey, we had a part in making that thing born, and we watched it grow. And we can give thanks that we had the privilege of living a life in the presence of an institution called Schreiner. In 1971, girls were allowed to live on campus. And the Board of Trustees said to me, Mr. President, your first job is to go and take some of those particular things out of the boys' dorm and put girls' things in there and put carpet on the floor and welcome the first girl. The final blows toward the military happened in 1973, and the military program was finally laid to rest. And then the decision was made, we will be a college. The name was then changed from Schreiner Institute to Schreiner College. I would say maybe something like this, that you've come a long way, baby.
As Micah mentioned earlier, our Centennial work has kept us busy for some time. In addition to tonight, the pieces of the Centennial celebration have included specific items like a Schreiner Centennial history book written by Dr. Tim Summerlin, Schreiner's 5th president, a biography of Captain Charles Schreiner written by Lee Herring with assistance from Bill Rector and Weir Labatt, who is Captain Charles Schreiner's great-great-grandson. The completion of the 100 of 100 stories provided to us by our alumni department provides insight to different stories of past students, and a pilgrimage to Alsace, France, the home of Charles Schreiner, also occurred this year. There are a couple other events that will happen through December 2023, so I encourage you to look through your program for this information. However, at the start of the Centennial planning period over 4 years ago, the university administration decided to commission the Symphony of the Hills to compose and perform an opus in celebration of our 100 years. We will hear this opus tonight, But we couldn't just have the symphony play one piece. We needed a concert. So to welcome the Symphony of the Hills, I introduce our Director of Music and the conductor for the Symphony of the Hills, Dr. Gene Dowdy.
Good evening, everybody. Institutions of higher education have long been associated with featuring music at their ceremonies, including symphonic music. For this event tonight, as well as the first subscription concert next month of the Symphony of the Hills at the Kathleen Callow Theater, the Symphony of the Hills celebrates the Centennial of Schreiner University, our host and co-sponsor for our 22-year history of your 100 years. My name's Gene Dowdy. I'm the Director of Music at Schreiner University, and I'm the conductor of the Symphony of the Hills. And the Symphony shares many things with Schreiner, other than me and some talented students and some talented faculty that you see on the stage. We share a mission. Many colleges and universities have commissioned composers to write new music to honor their celebrations, including some of the greats like Johannes Brahms. You'll get to hear Schreiner's Centennial opus composed by Dr. Donald Grantham in a little bit. Brahms, for his university commission, he blended joviality and majesty into his academic festival overture. I hear it incorporates a couple of merry party tunes, maybe? See what you think. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As our Schreiner Concert Choir is coming to their risers, I want to remind you that one of the most famous orchestral works to be heard at colleges and universities, of course, Brahms Academic Festival, that was pretty exciting, and man, what an orchestra, huh? Great. I'm out of breath, not because it's hard work, They moved me. But anyway, one of the most famous orchestral works colleges and universities deal with is Pomp and Circumstance Military March No. 1 by Sir Edward Elgar. Now, we know the famous graduation music. Ba-dee-da-da-dee, right? Okay, but you know that's just the trio section of Pomp and Circumstance Military March No. 1. That's one part of the march that we know so well that is played over and over as those incredible graduates cross the stage. But the opening, bursting with an energetic orchestral fanfare, I think of that as like the pomp. That's kind of the enter with hope. You know, the students first get to college, lots of chaotic energy, new clothes, new environment. The solemn trio section that we kind of know, that's the achievement, leaving the graduation to show the circumstance that they've made it. Well, Schreiner University, you've made it. 100 years, amazing. And this circumstance brings beautiful stories and music to light. Elgar allowed a hymn tune entitled Land of Hope and Glory to be sung with his music. He sanctioned those words. The words of the hymn seem to blend with Schreiner's mission and spirit and encourage us not only to look back, but to become stronger and reach further. When the orchestra gets to that part of the music, I ask you to join in the singing in honor of Schreiner University. You'll know what it is because you're going to be led tonight by the Schreiner University Concert Choir and their director, Dr. Andrea Runnels. They're going to join the Symphony of the Hills, which is Schreiner's Symphony, Elgar's Pomp and Circumstance. And you know what to do. The words are up there for you.
Our second Centennial video highlights the changes to our campus as Schreiner College. This part of the story shares Schreiner College's successes and is narrated by Schreiner's fifth president, Dr. Tim Summerlin, who served Schreiner University from 2001 until 2016. Please draw your attention to the screen.
The 1970s had been eventful for Schreiner. It had indeed come a long way, baby, but there was a long way yet to go. High school students were no longer a part of the group, and the college recognized that the future of a two-year private college was questionable. They began to work in a number of ways. One of those was to build a modern gymnasium for the athletic teams. The main thing was to create a four-year college. Faculty were determined to have a curriculum that was distinctive, that supported the liberal arts, even though it kept a close eye on preparing people for professional competencies as well. In 1984, the first class earned baccalaureate degrees at Schreiner. Continuing to construct for the future, Troll Dormitory was built to provide appropriate housing. Buildings on campus were repurposed so that they could serve academic needs, and for the first time, the president left the campus to help make opportunity for development. Meanwhile, President Junkin and his development director, Karen Kilgore, planned for the future in the endowment and created the Schreiner Oak Society. Sam Junkin, after 25 years, retired, and he was replaced by Thompson Biggers. Thompson Biggers, among other things, had guests on campus, George Bush Sr. and George W. Bush, to celebrate the changes at Schreiner. Unfortunately, a serious accident limited the Biggers' ability to serve, and in 2000, Sam Junkin was called back to serve as interim president. Construction began on an absolutely critical building, the Callow Campus Activity Center, which provided a true multi-purpose student life facility. Schreiner also, for the first time, adopted a master's degree in education. Housing was expanded again, this time the first genuine apartments on the campus appropriate for college housing. Other amenities were added. A long-planned goal to become Schreiner University occurred, finally distinguishing Schreiner from two-year colleges, a fitting legacy for the work of Sam Junkin.
But unlike an eclipse, the symphony is going to soon repeat the Grantham work at our first concert of the season. It's on October 5th in the Kathleen Callow Theater just down the street. So please come back for that. When the Centennial Committee chose Donald Grantham to be the commissioned composer, I immediately started thinking about the small world it is in music. You see, I had Dr. Grantham as a professor in my undergraduate music program at UT Austin. And I had another tremendous teacher at UT, Professor Jerry Junkin. He taught my first conducting class. I marveled in the years since graduation how those two musicians are celebrated on an international stage. When I first came to Schreiner, I took note of how significant the Junkin name is and how it's woven into this place. Having Jerry Junkin on campus to conduct the Grantham premiere, it's more than symbolic. It's poetic. It inspires hope that a small university will be celebrating our bicentennial with accomplishment and achievement. Well, now's the time. Please welcome soprano soloist Haley Dove Montoya, guest conductor Jerry Junkin, and the Symphony of the Hills performing Donald Grantham's Everyone Sang.
Thank you, composer Donald Grantham, for that commissioned piece, and conductor Junkin for the performance, and to our vocalist, Haley Montoya. That was an amazing performance. Let's give him one more round of applause. Tonight, we have already heard the stories of Schreiner Institute and Schreiner College. We have also recognized our families that have built the Schreiner legacy. But before we turn our attention to Schreiner University, I ask those present here tonight, those of you who are former employees, current employees, former Board of Trustee members, current Board of Trustee members, friends of Schreiner University, alumni members, and current students, if you will please rise. Please take a look around and understand that we are Schreiner University. I'll say that again. We are Schreiner University. SU, baby! Thank you all. Now, one of the things that happened over the last few years was the revival of our alma mater. Mentioned early to you this evening, Dr. Sam Junkin wrote the first version of the alma mater as a student. And at that time, it had become increasingly common for each school or student body to have a school song to express the gratitude and esteem that students and graduates felt toward their institution. Well, he did just that. And over the years, the lyrics have been updated to be more inclusive as the university now serves all genders and walks of life. Presently, we sing our alma mater at our university-wide celebrations like academic convocation each fall, and at graduation as a tradition. And a reminder that we express our gratitude to Schreiner University. Well, a celebration like this only happens every 100 years. And we feel it appropriate and necessary to do so tonight. For the first time in our institution history, the Symphony of the Hills will play our Schreiner University alma mater. The song will be led by our Schreiner University choir. The lyrics will be available on the screen for everyone to be able to join in. Please rise once again for our alma mater. Please be seated. As we round the final chapter of our history, we look to the success of Schreiner University. Our last of the three-part Centennial video series showcases the growth of the university from 2001 to today. This video is narrated by Dr. Charlie McCormick, our sixth and current president. Once again, please draw your attention to the screen.
And so the fourth age of Schreiner's first century began, marked by new initiatives. Perhaps the most important was the selection of a new president. Dr. Tim Summerlin, who had been provost at Schreiner since 1999, became Schreiner's fifth president in 2001. Now it was the new Schreiner University's turn to be tough. The path towards not just surviving, but thriving became embedded in the collective unconsciousness of the faculty, staff, and board members. The university increasingly found itself in an aggressive recruitment environment. In ways it had not before, Schreiner invested in marketing in order to become known to prospective students and their families. The most successful was the Brainheart campaign. The television commercials boldly announced Schreiner's entrance into the competitive world of enrollment marketing. But not everything was new. Some initiatives for the university returned to Schreiner's past for inspiration. For example, military training had been phased out as a requirement in 1971, but in 2004, Greystone Preparatory School would locate its program on campus, offering students a military-style learning environment as they prepared to apply to one of the federal military academies. The whole person development of our students remains as important today as it did when Schreiner's first president, Big Jim Delaney, articulated the idea of an education foursquare. Schreiner remains, as it has always been, a highly residential campus. Therefore, we continue to invest in student housing and our students' physical development through spaces like the Mountaineer Fitness Center. And we invest in their spiritual development through spaces like the Junkin Campus Ministry Building. Providing an affordable and therefore an accessible education remains as important today as it was when Schreiner was swapping a semester at school for a goat or chickens or whatever else a family had to barter. Today, through the guidance of our Board of Trustees, Schreiner has a locked-in tuition, has created an inclusive tuition strategy, and is focused on raising funds for students with financial need so that they can continue to graduate with some of the lowest debt loads in the state and nation. President Summerlin's legacy is multifaceted with many accomplishments secured under his watch, but he will most certainly be remembered as the president who maximized the beauty of the campus, transforming it into what some observers have remarked is the loveliest small college campus in Texas. He would be seen frequently pulling weeds from newly planted beds and advising the grounds crew about trimming campus trees. Graduate programs were the first to be transitioned into fully online programs, and then a fully online undergraduate program was developed, the RN to BSN program. All of this work and development paid rich dividends when, in spring 2020, all of higher education found itself unable to provide face-to-face classes and had to provide virtual and online class instead. After Schreiner became a university, the decision was made to move its athletics program into the NCAA as a Division III school. It was a risky move, and students and coaches rose to the challenge. Dr. Tim Summerlin would hire me as provost in 2009, providing me the experiences necessary so that I could become an evolutionary president in 2017, maintaining the momentum of the programs he and I began. Starting as a club activity, the shotgun team thrived and captured national championships in 2018 and 2019. Schreiner has also invested significant time and energy in creating gateways to campus so that the regional community understands that our Schreiner University is their Schreiner University too. There is perhaps no better emblematic representation of this gateway than the trailhead, which connects the campus to the entire community and invites the Hill Country to relax, listen to some music, and gather with friends. Launched in 2020 and under the direction of Dr. Don Frazier, dedicated to preserving and promoting the very best of the Texas experience, the Texas Center reminds all of us at Schreiner and well beyond that our individual stories intersect with the big, bold, audacious story of this state we call home. When Greystone left campus, Schreiner had the opportunity to launch an homage to Schreiner Institute, which provided preparation for entrance to the military academies, but also an ROT experience and a place to serve our veteran and veteran-dependent students. And now it's our centennial year, a year of recognizing the giants from our past. And as much as we feel obliged to look back at this moment, we're compelled to look forward too. To be sure, we can once again see dark clouds on the horizon. At Schreiner, though, we'll face this uncertain future as we always have. We don't like to lose. And so we sweat, we laugh, we ache, we study, we teach, we research, we learn. We simply get to work. We welcome you to the future of Schreiner University, today, tomorrow, for another 100 years.
As the program opened this evening, we heard J. E. Grinstead reflecting on the fact that 101 years ago, this spot was an open field. And 100 years ago, he documented, this spot was the site of a brand new endeavor, a legacy project, you might call it, for an old man who had earned the right to establish a legacy, Charles Schreiner. And at the celebration marking the start of Schreiner Institute at year one, it was entirely appropriate to sing the praises of a triumphant Charles Schreiner who, towards the end of his life, was enjoying the culmination of his endeavors. But at year 100, tonight, I would suggest that we are less interested in the triumphant Charles Schriners and much more interested in an image to which we have been more recently introduced. Let us remember tonight the young Charles Schreiner, not so much triumphant as a scared and anxious immigrant kid who was probably angry at being brought to Texas, a place he didn't consider home. Not so much triumphant as just a lost and lonely teenager whose parents had died unexpectedly, who now couldn't count on the path that his mom and dad had no doubt planned before they set off for a new life in a new world. Not so much triumphant as absolutely unsure of what he should do next. Can't you imagine him looking around at the disaster that appeared to be his life and thinking it was just all too hot, it was just too dry, it was all just ruined, it was all just too much. Tonight, let us remember the young Charles Schreiner, who we would forgive for saying, I can't do it. It's too hard. I'm going back. But unwilling to be swept along or swept away by the winds of fate, the teenage Charles Schreiner must have had a moment when he sat upon the back of his scraggly pony, a moment which you can see represented on the screen in a painting started by renowned wildlife artist Miss Vicki McMillan Hayes, but touched by hundreds of different hands and brushes over the last several months. A moment when, on his pony, Charles Schreiner must have sketched a future, perhaps in the notebook he kept with him. A future that he would claim, though it seemed as if the universe was against him.
In so many ways, then, that young Charles Schreiner was just like any college student. And he must have sat upon his horse wrestling with the same thoughts and feelings that each new class of Schreiner students wrestle with. Anxiousness, to be sure. Uncertainty, probably. But curiosity, too, and an abundance of eagerness and enthusiasm to discover what comes next. May the indomitable spirit of that young Charles Schreiner continue to guide the future students of Schreiner as they look past the obstacles they currently face and imagine and earn and claim their own brilliant futures. We know from Joe Herring's blog that 100 years ago, the opening celebration ended with cheers for the old Charles Schreiner and the first students of Schreiner Institute. Tonight, we cheer Charles Schreiner's determined young self and 100 years' worth of Schreiner Institute college and university students, and our commitment, shared by friends and neighbors and employees and trustees alike, our commitment to express fidelity to Charles Schreiner's vision of a hill country and a Texas institution. Join with us in this cheer.
To perform our cheer like was done 100 years ago, do not worry, we will not do 15, but a modern hip hip hooray version. I ask our students and selected staff members to go ahead and surround our guests, and I ask for everyone to join in. Now we want to do this with some gusto and some enthusiasm, so that this becomes a tradition and continues hopefully for our Schreiner leaders in 21-23. Hip, hip! Hip, hip! Hip, hip!
And now Schreiner faces the century mark. Not old by the standards of the University of Paris or Bologna, Oxford or Cambridge, not even of Harvard or Yale. 100 years is an arbitrary figure in a sense, but one that our numbering system understands as a point of culmination. And indeed, there were many times over that century when it seemed highly unlikely that the small school, which faced low enrollments and lack of cash, which battled through the Depression and the financial crisis, would achieve the century mark. It didn't do so through complacency or apathy. It was sustained through people who believed in what they sought to accomplish. Whether they were instructors, trustees, students, administrators, staff, or donors, they were not infallible people. They made mistakes, sometimes big ones, but they were people of faith, in a sense of affirming the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. They saw an old cotton field and envisioned an institute. They imagined a baccalaureate college and created a suitable curriculum. They looked up at a world rapidly reshaping itself to digital reality and reflected on how that reality could be harnessed to learning values far older than the technology. And at 100, those who are a part of this persistent place of learning are thinking about how the school will celebrate when it reaches its second 100 years.
Thank you to Dr. Gene Dowdy and the Symphony of the Hills for their performance tonight with special guest conductor Dr. Jerry Junkin, composer Dr. Donald Grantham, and vocalist Haley Montoya. Thank you all for attending tonight's Centennial celebration. Travel home safely, and we look forward to seeing you back on campus soon. Good night.